The very best way to keep change team members engaged in the change process is to meet face to face. In fact, research suggests that face to face meetings with facilitators will not only increase commitment to change, but will improve overall implementation. Although costly in terms of time and resources, the very best way to make decisions, plan, resolve conflict, and stay engaged with a project is to be in the same room together. Of course, sometimes cost, schedules, and geography make that difficult. Therefore, change teams may need to take advantage of various types of technologies to stay connected. These include telephone, email, and digital conferencing like WebEx, Skype, or FaceTime. The important thing is for change goals and tasks to stay top of mind for team members. The facilitator and change team leader play key roles in initiating and leading communication. Although specific duties and responsibilities should be negotiated on a team-by-team basis, some tasks that the facilitator and change team leader should consider are sending email reminders, agendas, meeting minutes, etc., as well as calling team members in cases of absence or missed milestones. Team members also have a responsibility to keep in touch on work progress, meeting absences, and situations where assistance is needed. It's critical for team members to be on the same page about assigned tasks, deadlines, and upcoming events. Creating a culture of open communication is also vital to help avoid social loafing, which is when people don't pull their weight on teams. This can result in poor goal attainment and frustration by other team members. Promoting involvement, face-to-face meetings, communicating about goals, and being clear about task assignments are all ways to reduce social loafing. Together, team members and the facilitators should decide how best to communicate to external stakeholders, including executive sponsors and agency members affected by changes. Tools to communicate broadly include memos, written policies, emails, meetings, and trainings. Special care should be taken with people whose work is directly impacted by change goals. For instance, by holding small group meetings and personal training sessions to help people change their work processes, get accustomed to new protocol, and also provide feedback to change members. Likewise, it's best if there is consistent communication with executive sponsors and leadership members who can see that the changes are approved, embraced, and implemented. In particular, it's helpful if people like the local change team leader have access to those individuals, as executive sponsors can give direct assistance for dealing with obstacles. We'll discuss that in a few minutes.
I think whenever you're talking collaboration, and here we were talking 4 different treatment providers, and we were talking a single unit of intensive probation, and when you have a neutral party that really doesn't have a dog in the hunt, it makes it easier for people to air their debates, their problems, their concerns. It's probably easier for a neutral party to actually see when a person is not necessarily being as transparent as they need to be, and without having to basically ruin a relationship, the neutral party can kind of come in and ask the difficult question in a way that isn't going to be resentful for either party, whether it was probation or the treatment providers. So I think that's probably one of the most critical. Also, being a different set of eyes and not being enmeshed in it, they come in with kind of a clean slate, and they're watching and listening and observing, and are able to maybe ask some more in-depth questions that people just have taken for granted, and in fact that isn't necessarily the way it will come out. So the external facilitator really makes it easy to break down some of the barriers, in my opinion, and in pulling people aside perhaps and saying, gee, I noticed your body language, you weren't participating, and it wouldn't be like it was a probation person saying that to a treatment provider, or quite honestly, the treatment providers amongst themselves, because they're all sort of in competition for our clients. So that was kind of remarkable to watch. the facilitator actually assist us.
Regular communication and successful conflict negotiation are important for team success and goal implementation, which we'll turn to next.
Yeah, I think that one of the dilemmas is that, and that I think at some point along the way we've been set up as adversaries and not to be working together. And I can remember in Tree when I first moved here 20 some years ago, that it was just like that. It's like, if you have probation people in your group, don't talk to the probation officers. We're not going to do that. And I can tell you, since we've done the CJ DATS project, I talk to POs more than I ever have in the 20-some years I've been doing criminal justice in this state. Planning discharges, planning successful discharges, planning people who need higher levels of care that outpatient isn't working for them. Picking up the phone and just even at the screening point, when people come in for screening, I just called the PO the other day and I said, I know you set this person with this much treatment, but I'm just kind of letting you know, like, I've been going through this. I'm curious what you think about this. This is kind of what I want to recommend. He was all on board. We had a great discussion. The client was there. The client knows that we're working together. Big, huge thing. That the clients know that we're providing a united front, that we're working in their best interest, that we're talking to each other. We're not making decisions independently of one another. It's been a tremendous help, and I'm encouraging my counselors all the time to do that when they want to discharge people early. They feel like they've completed their treatment, pick up the phone, call the PO. If you have some issues with this person in your group, the PO may not know about that. The person's coming in a group and glorifying drugs and alcohol, and we're seeing a report from the PO saying the guy's doing great. You guys need to have a conversation. So people are getting into the habit now of doing that and not feeling any kind of way about picking up the phone and calling probation. It's like, this is what we...
Throughout any change project, obstacles will emerge, internal and external to the change team. Anticipating those challenges is the first step in addressing them early so that they do not cause significant problems in goal implementation. Common obstacles include change team turnover, inconsistent communication, waning motivation during long periods of work, burnout, and in large agencies, lag time in getting project plans and other things approved. Depending on team climate, obstacles will be more or less challenging. Anticipating and planning for the possibilities is crucial for ultimate team success, so we'll focus on strategies for keeping teams motivated and engaged. As discussed a few minutes ago, communication is critically important, especially during slow periods when it's easy for change team members to lose focus or become disconnected with change projects. It's helpful, then, to constantly monitor project milestones as developed in the process improvement plan, communicate frequently about milestones, including celebrating achievements, and to hold team members accountable for their parts of the plan. Having a clear and well-communicated plan with distributed tasks and reasonable timelines is useful to keep people on target. However, it may be necessary at various points to be candid with team members who miss meetings or do not meet their obligations. Having a clear process for managing these behaviors early on, along with buy-in from executive sponsors on consequences for poor performance, is helpful. It may also be useful to have conversations with poorly performing team members to determine the underlying cause of missed meetings or tasks. Perhaps they aren't passionate about the proposed change, feel overwhelmed by other job duties, or have extenuating circumstances that affect their performance. Some issues can be resolved by identifying additional resources, shifting tasks, or providing support. However, if the problem is lack of commitment or interest, you may find it's easier to ask people to leave the team rather than constantly deal with missed deadlines. In addition to team-based issues, you might encounter external obstacles that impact team success, including things like changes in the state or local budget and organizational level changes such as executive sponsor turnover. As they are unpredictable, external challenges require flexibility and resilience from change teams. At the end of implementation, it's easy to think that the change process is over. Really, the most critical phase has just begun: sustainability. In order for change projects to be considered successful, they must produce meaningful and lasting change. A good way to ensure successful change is to think about the end up front. Here are 5 helpful strategies for sustainability. The first is to build resources. As you implement changes, think about what type of resources are necessary to keep the implementation going and assist you in meeting your goals. Critically, it's important to get commitment from participating organizations to provide the resources staff need to sustain changes. It's imperative for executive sponsors to recognize that although it can be a sacrifice initially to provide resources, those efforts can lead to better outcomes and longer-lasting improvements. Sometimes resources can come from outside the participating organizations in the form of grants and supplemental funding. Secondly, you want to generate buy-in from team members affected by the change. Since team member commitment is key to making changes happen, it's important to keep members involved through all stages of the change process. Their participation contributes to team members' sense of ownership and responsibility over choices and their implications. This means communicating. It's essential for team members to understand why the change is necessary, as well as how their participation will help the change be successful. This communication can come from the facilitator, the change team leader, local champions in the organization, or members of management. Third, you'll want to spread the change or practice throughout your agency or system. Similar to the process of generating buy-in from the team, spreading the change throughout a system requires that other staff understand why the change is happening, why it's important, and how they can be a part of it. This can be accomplished via trainings and in-service meetings, online educational materials and information, and training manuals and other resources. It's also important to include and train well mid-level management and supervisors who may be asked ongoing questions about the change. Although it may feel like overkill, providing an abundance of opportunities to learn about the change, get support, and feedback about implementation, as well as knowing how to troubleshoot issues, will keep change efforts top of mind and go a long way towards success. Support and commitment from leadership in the organization can be an important factor in getting other staff to accept the changes and foster commitment. However, simply announcing or training for change is not enough. Rather, organizations should develop feedback loops with staff, which we'll discuss next. Fourth, you'll want to regularly communicate about change processes. An environment of collaboration and open communication can help keep up commitment levels, and ongoing feedback is crucial to an implementation success. It is important that staff feel safe to voice their concerns. When open communication is the norm, it can lead to more positive outcomes and less conflict. In particular, it's important that change team members be open to feedback from organizational staff affected by changes. Often, you'll learn about what's not working, as well as helpful suggestions about how to adjust the changes, critical information for sustainable success. Creating a feedback loop with those implementing change is important. This involves listening to staff feedback, making adjustments, and then communicating back to staff members. The feedback loop is meant to be a cycle for ongoing improvements rather than just a one-time event. So closing the loop or communicating back to staff members is crucial. Feedback can be gleaned through staff meetings, one-on-one interviews, informal conversations during process evaluations, or anonymously through suggestion boxes or online comment systems if available. Likewise, communicating back to staff can be done in meetings, via newsletters and emails, on bulletin boards, etc. Finally, number 5, you're going to want to return to your measures. Having baseline and follow-up measures can help to keep up the momentum of change. If staff can see that changes are occurring and leading to better outcomes, they will be much more likely to accept and support changes. Likewise, If leadership can see evidence that changes are actually occurring, and especially if they are beneficial to the organization, they may be more likely to stand behind the change and provide the resources necessary to continue the efforts. Similarly, measures can demonstrate when change efforts are not working and when adjustments need to be made.